They had a candidate all picked out named Lincoln Chafee, the son of another Lincoln Chafee. They're both John Chafee. So he was in that position because his father was a senator. Steve will tell you he didn't have half the brains that God gave a turnip. He was really stupid on the debate trail, but he was the chosen one for the Republican establishment. And they literally flew him out, or they offered to fly him out on the Republican jet. Did you know the Republican Party had a jet? They wanted to fly him out. Libby Dole was the, she was the, obviously the wife of Bob Dole, but she was running the national senatorial committee for the Republicans. They wanted him to come out there to talk him out of running. And so they were unsuccessful at that, but he lost in a primary. Karl Rove and everybody took him out. Lincoln Chafee won the nomination, lost the election, and then came back as an independent. As a Democrat. Well, he went an independent first. Yeah. He became an independent, and then wound up being elected as governor of Rhode Island as a Democrat. So that is the person that the Republican Party chose to run against the guy who was Tea Party before there was a Tea Party. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of that background. I'm really glad to call him a friend. You bet. Steve Laffey.
Thank you. If I were to keel over on the way home tonight, my other claim to fame, I won't keel over, is that I'm the only elected Republican since Abraham Lincoln to be attacked by the National Republican Party and run for higher office. They spent millions of dollars in Rhode Island. They spent the equivalent of $18 million in Colorado to defeat me. And I want to tell you one thing about the state Republican Party. I'm not going to get into the state Republican Party. I'm going to do national stuff. But let me just tell you something. The day that the state Republican Party did not fight, as I told them to do, about letting independents vote in our primary, was the day we lost the general election. Because it was another shot to the gut of the people like you who show up with the registered Republicans who give money, who are on a mailing list, and then they find out, because they know one thing, they're not going to Augusta National Golf Course, right? They're not going to the Masters course to golf there. They're not members. But when election time comes for a primary, because they didn't file the suit that I told them to, 20 different times. I know all about it because we were trying to do this in Rhode Island, and I was unsuccessful to get the establishment Republicans. The thought process that you're not going to see a screwed up election one day, so screwed up like mine. I lost the election in Rhode Island because of a quasi-open Republican primary that allowed Democrats to disaffiliate 6 months in front of the election, and the National Republican Party told them to do so. The National Republican Party disaffiliated 13,000 Republicans to vote for Lincoln Chafee, who became a Democrat. They told him to be a Republican for one day to defeat me. I lost by 3,000 votes, and the biggest turnout in the state of Rhode Island's history by twice, by a factor of 2. That's what we need to fight for. We may want to fight for all this other stuff too. That's what the state people fight for. They fight for you. If they're not fighting for you, you're not going to win another election at the state level ever again.
That's right.
Unless people feel like the guy in Briggsdale thinks those people are fighting for me. They ain't showing up. It's why Cory Gardner will not win the general election next year. I'm very sorry. I know no one wants to hear it. But 10% of registered Republicans are like, screw him. And one out of those 10%, one third of those people will vote Democrat just to go to the ballot box and say, screw him. That means he's going to overcome like 4 percentage points. And in Colorado today, there ain't 4 percentage points. But anyway, back to what I want to talk about. I get so upset because I appreciate, the reason I come out here, the reason I drove an hour and 25 minutes around 470 from Fort Collins is for you. I've been doing it for 15 years. And I was thinking before I came out, the reason I almost never have any notes, as you know. And I have a movie for everybody, by the way. My movie, Fixing America, if you haven't seen it, it's right over here. I brought in a couple of books. One guy walked in with the book. Who is he? He just finished reading it. Was it okay? My kids had never, by the way, here's the other thing that has to happen. I'm sorry, I'm not saying this one. Where are the children? I don't go any, I have 6 children. I do my best, you know. I should have had 10, I'm sorry. But I got 6. Let me tell you something. They're all conservative. They're all Christians. They're all homeschooled. I'm not sending any kids to public school. We're never fixing the public schools. We are past the point of fixing the public schools, folks. We're not going to fix them. So all I have from my friends, they have no idea. My friends, Harvard Business School graduates, Bowdoin College graduates, conservative businessmen. My son is like really liberal. Well, what the hell were you doing when they were growing up? You sent them off to some school. It wasn't the school that I went to, or you went to, where teachers did it by avocation. They had a calling to be a teacher. My calculus teacher, Miss Burns. My 3 conservative history teachers, economics teachers. The guy who gave me the book Free to Choose. So the guy who got me to go to Bowdoin College. They could have made more money elsewhere. Today it's union people. That's all it is. So unless we understand these things, we're not going to win. I thought Randy and I were on the air, and I was thinking, and if you go home and Google my name, you will see, and call up like Tea Party, you will see articles. And I hate to say this because there are no positive articles about this. So if I ask you to go call this up and you go home, there are people out there, Democrats, who hate me. But we did refer to me as the Tea Party guy before the Tea Party in 06, right? But it was 09, and I just thought I'd read to you about what people wrote about the Tea Party movement. Not 10 years ago. 10 years ago, American flags, Mr. Brown running. Everybody in Rhode Island went to help Scott Brown become a U.S. Senator. I'm like, the guy's not part of the Tea Party. This guy's a total mush. But everybody, this is what happens in our country and among us. There's somebody, he could win, he's a Republican in Massachusetts. We gotta go. And what did he do? He did nothing. He did nothing. The Tea Party movement is an American decentralized political movement that is primarily known for advocating a reduction in the U.S. national debt and federal budget deficit by reducing U.S. government spending and taxes. The movement has been called partly conservative, partly libertarian, partly populist, and sponsored protest. It comes from the Boston Tea Party. At the end of my movie, I filmed the end of this movie where Sam Adams started the Tea Party. So if you watch the whole movie and you'll enjoy it, at the end you'll see me stand there talking. I'm standing with Sam Adams on the Freedom Trail in a church where he started to tell people, let's go dump the tea, which is a great idea. Anyway, and then we read you some numbers. I usually don't do it this way. Let me read you some numbers about this. 2009, 1.4 trillion. 2010, 1.3 trillion. 2011, 1.3 trillion. 2012, 1.1 trillion. 2013, 719 billion. 2014, 514 billion. 2015, 439 billion. 2016, 585 billion. 2017, 665 billion. 2018, 833 billion. Do you know what I just read to you? The national debt every single year since the Tea Party started. So a group of people who love this country, and if you watch the beginning of the movie, you'll see why I made the movie. You'll see that literally this kid over here is younger, filming it. I have 2 of my 6 children with me. One has to do some 4-H stuff tonight, and she's young enough. The other ones are old enough and they're off. Not Sarah. Sarah is home with cancer, but she couldn't come anyway. But you think about these numbers, and you think about what people we're doing this for, and what we're here for. People here are generally older. I'm not just going to make anybody's age or myself's age. We're not here for ourselves. It's over. Not over, but whatever Social Security check. Whatever thing is happening. You're actually here because of the next generation. You're not here for yourself. You're not here because it's black or white or this or that or things that they talk about people in the Tea Party. They talk about, they're racist. Is this? No one's here for that. Nobody ever was. The movement is about the budget deficit and a corollary to it, a strong national defense like Reagan did with the 600 ship Navy. Really, that was it. There's all corollaries around that, but are we winning?
No.
Now listen, I only care about this stuff and how we get here. I'm not really into, and I know Sherry was talking about Mike Pence. Screw Mike Pence. Mike Pence was stopping the government, shutting it down to balance the budget until he decided to be vice president. And he talked about, we got to have some growth first, and then we'll get to that. Let me tell you what the government's doing. Paul Ryan in 2012 lost the election with Brit Hume's interview, when Brit Hume asked him, Tea Party people watching, listen, all elections are on the margin in America. We're not in Venezuela, right? It's all on the margin. So you remember this. Paul Ryan gets asked by Brit Hume, a great Christian guy, about the only guy I'll watch on TV if he shows up. So, Mr. Ryan, when is your budget balance? No. And Brit Hume says, no. When is your budget balance, Mr. Ryan? You remember this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. Ask him again. Paul Ryan says 2030. It's 2012. He says it's going to balance in 2030. Watch the tape. Call it Brit. I mean, these things are all on tape. The election's over. Like, they're not going to do anything. This is what I'm trying to get across to you tonight. We are late in the 8th inning of the game. And if we don't turn this around, there is going to be a moment where U.S. Treasuries don't sell. My friend, who's going to be in this little clip, Larry Kotlikoff, senior economic professor in the movie. If you watch the movie, you'll see him at the beginning of the movie. He's a great guy, by the way. Has lots of great plans. Some I totally disagree with, but some really good plans for America. And he's a wonderful man who cares about America. He's got children. I know them. They're good people. And, you know, when we talk about these kinds of things, I want to show you what we have planned for the next 10 years. It came out today. Yes, for the afternoon. Here's the next 10 years. I read you just numbers, you just put it in front of you. 2019, 1.1 trillion, negative. 2020, 1.1 trillion, negative. 2021, 1.1 trillion. 2022, 1.05 trillion. 2023, 900 billion. 2024, 700 billion. 2029, we're only going to have a $200 billion deficit. Does anybody believe that? Will you elect people for 2 years in Congress and they're going to make budgets that go out this far? This is the president's budget. This is Mike Pence's budget. Listen, I told you all on the radio, everybody knows this. I said Donald Trump's going to win the election. Watch my movie, you'll see why. By the way, his great customer service. There's only 2 people, when I sent out the movie to 400 famous people, only 2 people responded. One was the head of the Iron Workers Union, the other was Donald Trump's secretary. He loves the movie, blah, 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 blah. Thank you so much for sending it. I'm going to get to China in a second. I want to get to China in a couple of minutes. But what I want to go across to you about this is that we're not anywhere. Does everybody get this? We can talk about opioid. We're going to fail. So the interest cost in the debt 2 years ago was $228 billion. If you're a businessman like me and you're you're taking in $3 trillion and you're spending $4 billion, but if you're taking in $3 trillion and you have $200 billion in interest costs, you're like, yeah, okay. Do you know what the numbers become? Not, by the way, not under any scenario that's normal. Under the Federal Reserve scenario, right? The numbers become in 2020, I have it right, I don't have to even read it. It's $660 million in 2022. Billion, 660 billion in 2022. Where's the $400 billion extra interest cost? We're raising the debt. We are borrowing historically short. In other words, what we call in business terms the rollover risk. That's when you hear about a company going bankrupt, because that's not that they had too much debt. They had too much debt due tomorrow, right? That's what we call, because people roll their debt. So what we call the rollover risk, if I went down the street, and I've done this when I went across the country when I campaigned, and asked every single person, not in these neighborhoods, there's no neighborhood, but when I get to the next neighborhood, and people know we have 30-year bonds and 1-day bills and 1-month bills and notes and whatever. If I ask people, what's the average duration of our bonds? People say 15 years. They say it like clockwork. The answer is 6. We can't issue 30-year bonds. No one's buying them. The people who bought 2/3 of the bonds the last 9 years is the Federal Reserve. We went through a situation starting in August where the Federal Reserve balance sheet went from $400 billion to $4.5 trillion. Unheard of. But remember, if you watch CNBC, every Federal Reserve Board guy who comes on says it's totally normal. Now I ask you a question. If something's never happened before in 100 years, and it happens, is it totally normal? Of course not! But that's all we ever get, right? When you watch it, is your mind about to just blow up? It doesn't matter what channel anymore. Someone says something that you know is not true. you know is not true. When they say buying bonds, buying corporate bonds, buying mortgage-backed securities, buying 30-year bonds that the people are issuing, that the Fed buys them, is normal. It's like a three-headed man is normal. Of course it's not normal. Siamese twins aren't normal. It's never happened before. Now, in August, when they tried to unwind that, because what they're worried about the Fed is simply that they can't get rates high enough. A recession's come and lowering rates is what, if you're old enough to remember, pushing on a string. John Maynard Keynes, the Keynesian thought. They were pushing on a string. If you imagine they can't do much when you push on a string. They won't get them high enough. Now, the chicken and the egg is they can't get them high enough. We'll go broke. If we went to here's another question for everybody. What's the average amount of interest rate we borrowed at the last 35 years? Answer is 6%. What's 20 trillion times 5%? $1 trillion. We can't get to 6. Do you guys ever understand this? So the market, so by the way, the markets are in charge now. No people are in charge, right? The markets are mad. So the Fed has to stop, and now they're not doing that. They're almost going in the reverse direction. But they were doing it because they knew it had to be done. They knew that they're screwed. They knew that they can't do this again. Except now we have economic theory that says, oh, I got all the articles here. You probably have seen them. Debts, I got them right here. One, they're going to rethink inflation. They want to go to 3% inflation. Does that make sense to you? Is 0 inflation better than 3? Yes! Was deflation bad? If you woke up tomorrow morning and things were slightly lower in prices, like your cup of coffee, were you upset? No! So almost everything that happens is wrong. So when I come here to talk to you about, I want to go over it just like, I want to go to China in a second. But on these topics, the drivers of, the Wall Street Journal headlines, and this is why the Wall Street Journal is just a piece of junk too. White House unveils $4.7 trillion budget. Proposals to seize years of deficits in defense and border funding would rise. Border funding? $7 billion? Not spending $4.4 trillion? It's like a kick in, when I say kick in the bucket, it's nothing. But they put it in there because they don't want the border to be funded. They want people, a lot of people just read these headlines. Oh my gosh, they're going to do defense spending and border funding. But it's nothing. Then they have what they're cutting money in. They're cutting money. It comes until like they're cutting the Department of Education by $5 billion. $5 billion? Didn't we run on aren't we on the program of eliminating the Department of Education?
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, I'm just going to tell you, Governor Perry, if you go to my website, stevelaffey.com, you'll see at the bottom, Governor Perry and I introduced him in a thing called vote-to-reduce-debt.org that I spoke for, a billionaire guy who woke up at 87 and wanted to reduce the debt. He found me and I gave speeches. Had to call in and say in Alaska, I'm about to introduce Don Young. How do I introduce Don Young when we're going to vote to reduce debt, the bridge to nowhere guy? How do I introduce, what do I say? I didn't know he was coming. I mean, so these things become convoluted, but the drivers of our budget are Social Security, health care. So if someone walks into this room running for office at a federal level, and you're not asking them how to balance the budget, we, the Tea Party, aren't doing our job. 435 congressmen, only David Bratt, maybe at the Senate level, Rand Paul. Who has a serious proposal to balance the budget? The answer is nobody. The president gave a speech at the State of the Union. Go back and watch it. How many times did he mention the deficit? I don't know if he did.
But he is doing things too.
I'm not saying he's not doing some other things. I'm saying we're broke. I'm saying the president ran and said he would balance the budget over 8 years. I'm saying that's a complete bold-faced lie. I love deregulation. I love the judges. Blah, blah, blah. On this point, that is a lie. And if you say it's not a lie, you're the guy watching the Broncos play. You love the Broncos. The guy's totally offsides, and you're screaming he's not offsides. I get it. But I don't have time with my 6 kids. We are within 5 years of total failure. So we have to fix Social Security. We have to take healthcare spending to 10% of our GDP from 18%. We're the only country that does this. I'm going to run out of time. I've got complete solutions at stevelaffey.com. I talk for hours about this in the radio with people like Randy. But you people are the core of this. And we've got to get back to the basics. It's about the budget. The cycle of death of America is about the budget. The bigger deficits, the Chinese buying our bonds. Oh, we don't want to upset them, right? The whole thing goes around to what? More deficits. And at some point, listen, my friends are hedge fund managers. I ran investment banking firm. I mean, I helped run more Keynote. I ran some venture capital operations within it. I have friends who do this. All they want to be is 5 minutes in front of it. They know this is going to happen. We've got to stop it. We can't have people, we can't be talking about some lady every day and a new congressman who's crazy. I know she's crazy, and I know she's anti-American. But the other correlate to this is when, I want to remind you about this, when we don't provide solutions, when we don't repeal and replace, they have a solution, Medicare for all. And let me tell you another thing, when this comes down to election time, many of you might know how much it really costs to insure people. If you're a lawyer, if you're a plumber, if you're insuring your family, who has the $2,700 a month, right? Plus $13,000, you get one injury. Who has the $40,000? The average family of four in Colorado makes like 65 grand. Who has the 40 grand? On the margin, you got to go make like 70 grand to pay the health insurance bill. So let me tell you another thing that happens. People go into that ballot box and say, I never voted for Steve Laffey, and prance around, they all voted for me. The teachers voted for me. They knew, I never voted for that guy. The union leaders hated me. The fireman union hated me. They voted for the re-election 65-35 in the most democratic, as you know, the most democratic state in the United States of America, because I fixed it. Fixed it. You know why politicians don't use the word fix? Because they don't fix it. Fix means you took a car that didn't have a carburetor running right, the guy fixed it, and it runs okay. So politicians don't use the word fix, but I do. They say save Social Security. They don't say fix. Fix would mean the assets match the liabilities. The assets minus the liabilities in Social Security alone is $33 trillion, much bigger than the budget deficit. What we promised checks out to, what we're going to take in, is a negative $33 trillion number. Yes, I'm sorry.
So I've not seen your website, but today the Democrats announced they're not going to create a budget. So how would you handle that?
I think the president should get, listen, I think like with China, for example, I'll get to China, but I think the president misses the opportunity. He misses the opportunity to get on a train and get you riled up to follow him around. There's enough people who know this. Older people know this. That's why you're here. You want to play this tape? I'm going to talk to you about China a second. You have a question, ma'am?
I'm just wondering when he said the 8 years comment.
He said it in 2016. He said it all throughout the campaign. He said, regarding China, he was going to stop the islands and splat the islands. And he said, you might remember, go look this up. Day one, I called China a currency manipulator. He did not.
And he's been working on it.
He did not call them a currency manipulator.
No.
I know, listen.
He's been doing many.
The trade deficit over the last 2 years of him being president is up 20% over 2 years.
I'm sorry.
The
but
trade deficit.
He's been doing many things to fix the budget, but we can't call him Superman.
No. There's
He
no.
needs the Congress and Martin.
Listen,
Scumbag.
you can say that.
You can
The
blame
budget.
the Democrats for a lot of that.
Amen.
Yes.
They are socialists, and that is part of their plan.
We know that. Okay, we know that.
Don't blame the president.
I am blaming the president, the vice president, the Republicans in Congress, the Democrats in Congress, and everybody right in this room, including myself. We have not done enough, and we are at the precipice of disaster.
Watch your video.
Please watch it.
And I appreciate a lot of your information,
But
I support my president.
we can support the president. Of course. We can support, but we cannot stop. We got in China. Well, let's play the clip here in China. This is my new movie, Not Fixing America. Let's play this one clip. It's 1 minute and 20 seconds.
In 12 years, China
This is the
will
president.
take over as the world's great leading economic power.
One of the biggest mistakes that America made was writing China a blank check into the global economy.
Government doesn't help the small guy. The government helps the big guy.
Political leaders and the economic elite are at one level, Well, the working class is economic.
China holds between $1 and $2 trillion worth of U.S. Treasury bills.
If all the money in your life is leaving, eventually you've got a pretty good problem. They're helping us out, actually. They're investing in our country, and our problem is that we're overspending.
China overtook the United States as being the world's largest manufacturer.
It depends on a very large population that essentially works for nothing.
If we ever tax Chinese products, we would pay off their debt so fast.
But they charge us a 25% import tax to their country. We charge them a 2.5%.
What that does is make every good exported from China anywhere from 20 to 45% cheaper.
You're taking jobs away from us.
No one had to fire a shot to get our country.
There are very powerful American corporations lobbying American politicians not to change those trade relationships because they are China.
So who's looking out for us? You know, you have to be careful what you wish for.
It's not that China stole these jobs. We gave them away.
In exchange for the destruction of the American infrastructure.
We don't have a fabrication plant big enough in America to repair the Golden Gate Bridge. Another thing this lady could look up. The Golden Gate Bridge was fixed. It was fixed by Chinese laborers from China, and the barge that was taking 6,000 miles carrying the equipment because we don't have a fabricating unit anymore big enough to fix it.
And that's what he's trying to do.
All right, no more interruptions.
I didn't come to hear you, okay? Could you let him speak?
So this is what I want to get across to you. There are so many things that have to be done. In my opinion, this is my opinion, I've said this for a long time, the tariffs, I wish the tariffs had went in the first day. I wish we weren't trading with China. I wish human rights were as important as they used to be. President Trump, as I said, the reason he would win is he's the only person speaking about this. It's hard for people in Colorado to understand what it's like in Ohio. We live in a thriving, we weren't a manufacturing economy, we're not the old economy, we're growing, we're the new economy. If you're from where I'm from, my father was a toolmaker, okay? I watched the Japanese imports happen and so forth. I wasn't really that afraid of Japan, but they weren't building up their military. China is. China wants to be the world superpower, and I do not want my children to live under what would be worse than Roman rule. That we can agree upon. We can agree that we should support the president on this stuff. I hope that he walks away from any deal with China at all. I hope he whips more tariffs on them because of their debt to per capita income. You think ours is bad? This is way worse. Not their government debt. The private debt, the local debt, it's 250% of GDP. We're at 83 total debt, right? We have debt everywhere. We have student loan debt. I could tell you about this all day long. But to stay with communist China, we need to do things like put offensive weapons in Taiwan, like get Japan to get their act together. Is anybody scared of Japan coming after us? No. Japan, it's been 60 years. We've got to have them change their constitution. We've got to help India come. Did you see India fight with Pakistan? They were fighting. They had jets that were like 25 years old. Yeah, the two were shot down. They were so old, it was a joke. We have to help India. We have to be a buttress. Go get a map out if you forget where these places are. We've got to be a buttress so that we control the South China Sea. So if anything, listen, the President of the United States is the only person who's done anything about this. Believe me, not Bush, who gave away the store, not the other Bush, not the Clinton, everybody. Nixon was wrong to open China, right? All the way along. And President Trump has done something. But let me just tell you something. Listen, my background is some of my good friends work for, let's say, a giant steel company without giving away a name. Now, you all probably know who Milton Friedman is. He won a Nobel Economics Prize in economics for the permanent income hypothesis. It just basically means if someone loses their job, they think you're going to get another job, unless their income is permanently changed, they're not going to actually adjust their living style. If they're making 100 and then they lose a job, they're going to make 100 in the next 3 months. They're going to keep going to a movie or whatever it might be, right? The same thing's true for capital expenditures. If you notice, no one's really building fabricating plants. No one's building, Nucor is building one. I'm just saying, as a country, we're not building the kind of steel, aluminum, the kind we need to fight wars with, right? We're not building them. And the reason is, it can't just be a tariff for this year, maybe 10, maybe 25, maybe we're including England, which we shouldn't do. It has to be a law We've got to get back to our congressmen and our senators realizing what I'm telling you is this important. That why should my children fight the war that they're going to have to fight against China when we can win the economic war? We have to get the people of China to rise up against the 450 communists who run that country. So we've got to help the president be stronger, give him the message. We want more tariffs on these goods. And you know what? We'll suck it up. The other thing the president should do is what I tell you every time I come. I'm wearing stuff made in America. This shirt's made by Todd Shelton. Usually it's Todd Shelton will get more. This is the All-American Clothing Company. I have a patch on the back. The boots are made in America, double H. They make some in Mexico. I don't buy those guys. I buy the ones made in America. If you would just start tomorrow and tell all your friends, and if I could get with the president and help him do this, everybody should walk in every store and say, hey, where's the American made section? Ever try doing that? Do that and watch the reaction. Go into Walmart and say, where's the American made section? You know what will happen? They know there should be one. And they're kind of like, they look at you like, where is the? Now in Woodley Furniture, they'll know. For example, I buy furniture at Woodley Furniture. They have some made in America. They make the furniture. But great big places, they'll know. They'll be like, where the hell is that American made section? Because they're Americans. They're not Chinese. They know there should be one, but they kind of know there isn't one. But if you ask them, and like I do, I only buy stuff made in America. Now, obviously, your phone, this thing, think about it. We can't buy some stuff made in America, lots of stuff. But we can buy more stuff. And on the margin, if we all did it, we'd solve the trade deficit like that. We would, if we did it. People, the Tea Party, right? We do it. Do it tomorrow. Go ahead, sir.
Quick question. If Trump takes a hard stand, increase tariffs or whatever, that you feel is something that needs to be done to check China's expansion, how does that affect like Wall Street, the investors? And the reason, because it's been my perception, I mean, we've seen some volatility here recently going on the market simply because, I guess, the uncertainty of what's kind of going on in China. So if he definitely does come back and say no more tariffs or whatever, what is your perception? How would that affects markets?
Some people be hurt. Here's what I want to tell you. You have to understand, there isn't a solution to a terrible problem like I had in Cranston, Rhode Island. The worst bond rating in the United States of America. 27 days till they defaulted on the debt. A campaign where, imagine debates where 1,500 people showed up. I mean, that's not happening. The place was broke. So when I shoved 20 pounds of cod liver oil down their throat, and people were screaming the second day I'm the mayor, I'm going to kill my dog. I can't even afford dog food. I have to raise taxes, cut spending, do away with seniors square dancing at the senior center, not pay the electric bill, blah, 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 blah. I mean, right? There's a whole list of these things. You can actually still watch this up on YouTube. But somebody suffered. The president and our leaders should tell people that. You know what? For the future of Stephen Laffey Jr., we're going to suck it up as Americans like we had victory gardens in World War II. This is as important as that. I know there's not a fighting war. I know we don't have to have FDR yet saying, last night the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, right? Last night the Japanese bombed Guam. I know that physically hasn't happened, but with Hui Company, right? Trying to get the 5G and put underground cables and spy on us, everyday cyber wars against our military, against our civilians, against stealing our stuff. We can undermine communist China so that the bill of goods that the Wall Street Journal and everybody sold you every day until about a year ago, thank God the president became president. Because at least we're moving in this direction. Well, thank God it wasn't Hillary Clinton. It'd be over. Over on this topic, on a lot of topics, judges, everything. Over on this topic. She would do nothing about it. She's in the bag with everybody. But at least in this topic, we're doing something. We just got to go at a faster rate. Because if we don't upset their economy right now, when they're very vulnerable, and let their people rise up, because the bill of goods was that. Get this. Remember this. You go look it up every day. If we give them better trade deals, they'll become a republic. Where was the evidence? Had it ever happened before? No. Large multinational corporations wanted to go over there and make more money. And that's why when you drive east, and when you watch my movie, I'm driving east. It starts right at Fort Collins, where I live. You start hitting these places, and even though a lot of stuff has come back, the economy is strong, blah, blah, blah. It's not the conversation tonight. These people are devastated. what is it really like for millions of people who are 55 years old, who made 80 grand with overtime and lived the American dream, kids in a decent school, went to a state college, took a couple weeks of vacation, to lie there at night and make 45 grand working 2 different jobs because the subset of that auto factory closed down and that town closed down. You may not know what it's like. I do. My father, I know the strain. It's millions of people and it didn't have to happen. As that guy said, that's the guy who runs the Alliance for Manufacturing, we gave it to him. And we can get it back. We are by far the best country. We're the most industrious country. We invent the most things. Does Islam invent anything? Not a single thing. Right. So we Americans, we invent stuff. We gotta keep it, we gotta get ahead, we gotta make it here. Not everything. They want to still make toilet paper and t-shirts, God bless them. But if the president comes up with, we're gonna sell them more soybeans one more time, I'm gonna throw up. I'm sorry. I am not part of Guatemala making bananas. But the law of competitive advantage is that if you keep making bananas in Guatemala, and I keep making you solar panels or whatever the heck, high-tech stuff, you do better. You just don't do as good as me. Because I'm making LED wafers, and I'm making high-tech stuff, and you're buying them down in Guatemala. I've been to Guatemala, I love Guatemala, so I'm not making fun of you. I'm just saying that's the law of competitive advantage. The law of free trade really only works when people have the same per capita incomes. Us in Canada. I don't know why the president got off by Canada. They're really Americans. They almost all live right at the border. How many people live more than us? Nobody. You ever been up there? Go 20 miles up north into Canada. Whoa!
No one's flowing across the border.
Exactly. Look, they make money. They come here for operations or whatever. I'm sorry, ma'am, you go ahead.
Can you address the farm problem? The farmers are hurting because of what's going on, and also the oil, 181, the Senate Bill 181. Polis owns oil interests in Canada, and this.
Yeah. Listen, all these people are complete hypocrites. Republicans and Democrats at the top. I don't want to get into that. I will get into the farm stuff, okay? The farmers would be better off. Listen, go home and co-op a 10-year, 15-year crop of corn. They have ethanol, right, in Iowa. It's supposed to be the greatest thing ever for these people. They all should have grown hay. I'm just not joking. Like, the price of corn is down over 10. You would expect to look at this ethanol thing, more mandated. We don't need any of it. I mean, pick up a pound of ethanol and walk around with it, and pick up a 5 gallon, and pick up 5 gallons of gasoline. And you say to yourself, man, God made a great thing here. There is so much. I put it in my tractor diesel. I'm looking at it like, who thought this up? God, obviously. I'm not the guy. But it's unbelievable. The only thing better than that is nuclear, right? So the farm, listen, after looking at the farm bill, which again, nothing's been done, go try to read the farm tax law. I have a little farm, who can read it, who can understand it? When do you make the milk? I have no idea. It's just, it's complete crazy. That's why did Herman Cain get so popular? He's a friend of mine, Herman Cain. 999. You know what, I sat with Herman Cain for 4 hours a couple of years ago in his office in Atlanta. He's like, Steve, there's these fair tax people and these flat tax people. I kind of came in, I don't really care that much. I just need something totally different. If you look at the 999 plan, and probably today has to be 11, 11, 11. Sorry, it's not catching it. I mean, maybe 12, 12, 12, it's shorter. But it's like half a fair tax, half a flat tax. It's a simplified tax. It's really wonderful what Herman came up with. He didn't even go with it, but he used it. He's a brilliant guy. He should have been the president. But he's your Tea Party guy. I mean, Herman Cain was going to blow it up. That's why they stopped him with the fictitious women who never appeared again. I mean, never. Anyway, you better make me stop, but I'll keep going as long as you want. I'm happy to keep going, but go ahead. Yes, sir.
I understand your argument, and I hear what you're saying, but we had a Republican Senate, we had a Republican.
Yes.
We have no leadership.
None.
So what's your solution to that? I mean, I understand all the things you're talking about. Where you find?
I mean, I've tried. Listen, I've won it, I've won it, I've lost. I'm down 500 grand. I don't know how to explain it other than that I think we have to have a much hard. Listen, people want to like the people, right? But anybody one is in front of you. Like if Corey Geiger walks in here and says, how are you going to balance the budget? If you want to know how to balance the budget, watch the movie. There's an 8-minute, I balanced the budget in 8 minutes. Maybe it's 11, I'm sorry. It's like 10 minutes. I'm sitting at a desk. I'm doing things that people, again, it's like Cranston, Rhode Island. Nobody would like. But it saves the future for Jessica and Stephen, and Audrey and Peter, and Samuel and Sarah. Isn't that why we're here? I mean, listen, I grew up in a public school. My father was a toolmaker. I lived the American dream. I stopped it to do this. I want to sometimes bang my head so hard against that wall, because I know where we are. I am a financial genius. I hate to sound, I'm a financial, I'm not really good at cooking food. I'm not good at a lot of things. I can speak and I know numbers. And I'm telling you that at some point we cross the chasm of no return. And it's going to happen when we have a bond auction and no one wants to buy it. Everybody will continue to say today, well, we're the best shirt, dirty laundry, you know, these phrases people say, because Europe is really terrible, right? Right? Who really wants to buy Chinese bonds? Nobody, right? Really, when you think about it. They're 1% of the transactions, everything's done in dollars. Everybody wants to live in America, right? So, but at some point it's going to fail. And when it fails, what's going to happen? Who's ready for this? When I look at my father, now you guys look like tough guys and ladies, right? I'm not tough, I mean you're beautiful ladies, but but the intestinal fortitude, you know? You people would suck it up and eat beans if you had to for the country. But what about the rest of the people out there? Who's going to do the victory yards? By the way, another thing in the budget, it's the Paul Ryan budget, it's the George Bush budget, the Obama budget, it's this budget. 10 more years with no recession? You're sort of joking. It's the longest expansion in history right now because of what the Fed has done. It's not natural. It's okay to have recessions. We're going to go, the budget says we're going to go 10 more years at 3% growth. Nobody believes that, so why put it out? Listen, if I could get to the president, I'd be like, let me advise you. Like, listen to me on this. Go tell people the truth. We are in a bad situation. We're still the greatest country. I want everybody to suck it up for a couple of years. Here's what we're going to do. You know what? Many, many people are waiting to hear that. I know in a microcosm in Cranston, they were. People said I could never win. When I did a poll in May of 2002 in Cranston, Rhode Island, I hadn't been home for 20 years, right? 500 people on a poll. I hate doing polls, but I did one poll. I hate spending the money on it. But anyway, 2 people knew who I was. One really liked me, and one somewhat liked me. So when people would say, hey, Mr. Laffey, did you do any polls? I'd be like, yeah, how'd they go? I said, we have very low negatives. It was the only thing I could say without bald-faced lying. It was May. I was down, luckily the undecided vote was so great, the place was so bad, the Democrat, basically couldn't run, this guy couldn't run. And so at the end, undecideds generally choose the challenger, and they did with me. And I kept going and going and going. And people were close by, so I could go see them all 80-some-odd thousand people. They all live. They don't live like out in District 4, in the congressional district, right? You go try to find 60 people, and you're like, whoa, what am I doing here? I can't find anybody, right? And the ones I'm going to find are going to shoot me if I go up their driveway, right? Because they live on a farm up there. But in the east, in the northeast, people live close together. I'm joking. I'm not going to shoot me. I'm just saying you can't find people in rural districts, right? It's a harder district to run. But here, in Cranston, you could find everybody. They all live I live next to a gas station. Just people you could find them all. And I did. But go ahead.
Okay. Boy, am I depressed. Rightfully so. Okay, what I'm concerned about is if we do suck it up, which appears to be what's necessary, I'm afraid that this country, we see the same things that we saw in Greece and all the other countries. Hey, let me just
go ahead.
Because of the austere measures that were required, of the people. See, what bothers me is when World War II broke out, there was a tremendous sense of patriotism in this country. Yeah. And our young boys died, gave their lives. Moms went into factories. We sacrificed. Sure. I remember my mom telling me, collecting nylon for the parachutes and all this other stuff. Silk for the parachutes. All these sacrifices, and we came through. This is such a different generation now. We have kids that are thinking about free stuff. Okay, who it's like. So that's my concern. That is can we suck it up?
Well, I think we can because it's a different. I'll give you an example. Social Security, for example, it's $1 trillion. So let's talk about it for a second. I'm a businessman. I look at cost and I look at the top line item. It's Social Security. Next is Medicare, Medicaid. They're about the same. So we take in 3.2 trillion, we're gonna spend 4.3 trillion, I mean, right? I mean, you can't keep doing that, but anyway, but out of that money, what are we spending the money on? You know, 2 trillion is gonna be those two subjects, so Social Security. I did a paper in 1983 for professorship about Social Security. Even then, I knew people were totally getting screwed. In other words, if they had invested the money back when they were 20, so here's a solution to Social Security that we could do. I mean, the liberal papers will go crazy. It's not the truth. But if we said, and by the way, the person who gets hurt the worst by this is me, person in the 50s. Because what we ought to do is make it private again in a sense. But unlike 401ks and IRAs where people keep selling out of them and they wonder why they have no money, you make it so that a 20-year-old would love this program. For our children, you're 20, you're gonna put X amount every year. You get married, it's half yours, half them. You get divorced, you split it up. There's a whole system of doing this. It all gets invested in one world stock market, bond market index. Way better than Social Security, which is negative, right? So you go all the way to say 60 for that person. And we just stop buying you annuities. And when you turn 70, again, it might be a little bit older based on the actual numbers, all of a sudden you got a guaranteed income based on what you put in. We take everybody in this room who's under 65 and we zero them out, in a sense. You're gonna get what the last letter that came from the Social Security says you're gonna get. By the way, they don't send the letters anymore because they're broke. Did you notice that? Last couple of years you used to get a letter, now you don't. They're totally broke, they don't send it out. But so the guy who's 50 only has 10 years. Like he's gonna get a little bit less because he's not gonna build up the more years. He's only got 10 years to do the stock bond, you know, whatever, world market thing. No brokers, by the way. Just one computer, we just put it in there. And then they buy annuities. So that person does relatively worse. Let's be honest about it. That person, the person who's already 75, they got it. We're not gonna touch a 75-year-old lady, you know, we're not gonna go to my 89-year-old mom. So no one's touching those people, but here's what happens. Immediately, just like in Cranston, Rhode Island, when I fixed the pension, the problem. Immediately, all of a sudden, the future liabilities, way out in the future, start dropping dramatically. And as the people, unfortunately, start dying who are on the Social Security program, and the new people come through, 20, 21, 23, in about 10, 15 years, 20 years, this 33 trillion becomes near zero. It just has to, right? Because, now remember, now here's the other thing about it. You die at 35, your heirs get the money. It's whoever lives to say 60. Then we take 10% of what's in that account and keep buying annuities for 10 years. At 70, it'd probably be 73. I'm just giving you rough numbers. At 73, right? Look how I walk up and down the dinner. But at 73 or so, they're in. So if they all die of a plague the next year, all the 73-year-olds, I mean, but they have, now it's guaranteed. It's all taken care of. But we got to take these unfunded liabilities down, right? By the way, we have to, and we have to, as Republicans say this. Someone told, you said it very well. We can't have a tax system. That's why I was against these tax cuts. They didn't simplify my tax code. They're going to really take off Republicans in Pennsylvania. People pay high property taxes, you can't deduct them. I'm for simplifying flat tax, fair tax. I'm Herman Cain. I'm Herman Cain on this issue. But I wanted to just tell you that, you said it best. What did you say though? Oh, I just lost my train of thought on it. But we have to take that, we can't have 53% of people not paying taxes. At the end of we have to explain this to people. Listen, at the end of the line of the tax code, whatever it is, and it says zero, it has to say one extra line. Send in $300.
What?
Send in $300. Everybody has to have skin in the game. You will find this if you're the head of the Republican Party. I found it, I never campaigned before. I found it, I sat in a barber's chair, right? Barbers everywhere in Cranston, Rhode Island. Got my hair cut like 4 times a week. It was crazy. Started getting shaves. I mean, I couldn't get my hair cut anymore. But I tell you what, I tell my story to a barber, and these guys talk to, when I leave, they talk to everybody. Everybody in Cranston gets a haircut. It's a yokel place, right? Barber shops, donut places, you name it. You give a guy, say, listen, give me $5. If a guy's in for $5, like he's in, he's with Laffey, right? You give him an extra tip. All of a sudden he's cutting hair. Not Steve Laffey's got a nice family. Oh, he seems to be a nice guy. Blah, 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 blah. Everybody has to be in the game. So when we say, we're gonna buy some F-22s and give them to Taiwan, I'm not making this up. People think they're part of it. It's the other thing about this term limits we need, but it's also like about campaign finance report. I hate to say it, because conservatives hate it when I say this, I'm sorry. But this isn't working. Like, whatever the hell we're doing, when I make trips across the country, and I see people who have $50, and they know George Soros has 60 million, and they know the Koch brothers have 50 million, whatever it is, they know they're not making a difference. They're out of the game. They're saying, well, I can't do it. So they don't give anything. If for example, and I know this is limiting free speech, I know people hate this, but I'm just telling you, people ask me what works. What does it mean to be a conservative? I say, what works over a long period of time? A man marries a woman, they stay married, they have children, that works. Stuff like that works. Like, there's more people, it's good. So what works? It would work if people felt they had skin in the game. Like, for example, let's say it was everybody can give $5,000 a year to whoever the hell they wanted. You're running for city council, here's 5,000. You're 5 are running for Congress, 1,000, I'm done. Then everybody would be like, you know who would hate that? All the local news channels would go out of business. Go look at their numbers. They don't even make money during election years. It's just totally broke. And the people already in office hate it. Look at anybody, conservative people, look at who gives them the money, it's all PACs. They can say they're for the people, at the end, it's all PACs.
So Steve, we are gonna run out of time.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So there's a couple, don't leave. Are there any other videos you
No,
want
no,
to
I
see?
think that was, I want you to just watch that. That's
So
a very positive, Trump, trying to do something, what's happened, we have like an 80-minute thing. If I can't get this distributed, I won't release it, I'll just put it up for free. But we haven't took the title, Stop China Now. If you see Fixing America, a third of it's about China. If this movie, everything's about China, and I just have, the hard part is, if I want to be the right-wing Michael Moore, I just got to go bust Democratic chops. I'm just, the reason I don't do that too much, I'm just tired of it. They're insane. Like, I'm tired. It's hard for me to deal with the mental illness of like, I just don't even know what they're talking about. I'm trying to fix our party in our country, and that's what I'm going to leave you with. That's what we got to do. It's about the budget, and China cannot be the world superpower. We all got to be able to suck it up. Go buy some American clothes and ask where it is. And if 15% of Americans did that tomorrow morning, our trade deficit would drop dramatically. It just would. I pay a little bit more for this guy, Todd Shelton. This is an original run. I'll tell you. But he runs this original run out of New York. He's a friend of mine. He watched the movie. He makes stuff in America. I know all these people. They know me. They watch the movie. They watch me talk about stuff. It's about America, America, America.
Because you're paying American prices for that shirt, not Chinese prices.
And I don't care.
That's the difference.
I'll tell you this. I will tell you the honest to God truth.
Right. It's our price, not their price.
I buy.
That's the difference.
I have a blaze of Hickey Freeman. It's very expensive. I'd rather have one Hickey Freeman that lasts me a lifetime.
That represents our standard of living, not Chinese standard.
Right.
That's right. I agree with you.
They can't buy, the reason they're dead is they don't have the income to buy their own production.
That's right.
They have to export it here.
That's right.
So we borrow the money so we can buy it. We can't do that.
You got it.
So Steve, if everybody in here everybody in here watched the movie and came away inspired, I've got to do something. What would that next something
I think for this
be?
group, it's bringing children to come to these meetings. I think it's bringing a friend to the next meeting. I think it's talking about this deficit thing like we did 10 years ago, not getting off tangent on stuff. I think it's calling Cory Gardner, who's running for Congress, about the deficit, if you don't want to talk about China. Because it's so easy to grab these numbers out of the paper and just say, I don't want this. And the correlator, of course, is we make stuff, manufacturing jobs, and you'll see it in the movie, have the biggest economic boom, what we call the multiplier effect in economics, than any other job. It's at least 4 more jobs. This is why when Detroit contracted, it was so bad. It wasn't those jobs there. It was the guy who sold the batteries, the Motorcraft battery guy, all these things, right? All these things backed up, and they've gone. And we've got to tell President Trump to get on the bandwagon about something he believes in. By the way, Trump and he agrees with me. I agree with him. He loves this part of the movie, I'm sure, right? He cannot be bamboozled by trying to make deals with communists by people around him who are weak. One of them being Mike Pence, I'm sorry, on this issue. Not Mr. Lighthouser and not the other guys. But the President of the United States, on this issue with China, if he was standing here and he wasn't the president, totally agrees with me on that. We are like, hot on this one issue, the president and I would high-five each other. I just wish I was next to him and walking next to him saying, here's what we're going to do. You're not doing it. we're whipping on these tariffs, we're gonna tell the see, no one really wants to tell people that for some people it was.
Well, we get that, but let me play devil's advocate with you for a minute.
Yeah.
Because we have an election coming up in 2020.
Yeah.
That if President Trump loses to any of these socialist-loving crazies in the Democrat side,
Yeah.
then everything that's happening to Colorado right now on a small scale will begin to happen at hyperspeed on a large scale to this country. So, with a growing economy, with more money coming in, with a big election coming up in a year and a half, and people not really focused at all on the debt right now, as important as that is, even more important to me is to make sure that we do everything that we can to make sure that we have a second term of Donald J. Trump. And I don't think the conversation on the deficit brings a whole lot of new people on board.
It may not, and then I fail. It may not, because you're gonna remember me when it fails. You're gonna watch that movie again, and you're gonna say, but because I just gotta tell you, you're gonna be alive. It's not that far in the future. I don't know what the hell's gonna happen.
Jesus is coming, and I'm out of here.
Listen, I'm with Jesus. I have a bet with 20 different things in my head.
Hey, if we don't believe in divine intervention, I mean, how many of you in mid-2016 thought we'd be not only having a President Trump, but celebrating having 2 years of a President Trump already? So, and that's like one in a room of 70. So,
I mean,
and I respect everybody who saw this long before I did, but it is unbelievable.
Well, the only bigger problem in our country, what I just told you, is empty churches. I mean, God protects our country. Pray every night for our country. Pray. Listen, if you have a lot of children, if you have nephews and nieces, you know what I'm talking about. You can see the future. It's not like 1920. It's not 1945. These communists, they'll take you all out. They'll take you all out, and they'll shoot you. They do it everywhere. They do it in the Middle East. I mean, all totalitarians. Venezuela. Listen, I would have moved in, if I was the president, I would have moved in Venezuela. This whole thing about, I always believe this one thing. You know, I'm a Monroe Doctrine guy. I'm going to die a Monroe Doctrine guy. And any Russian ship a plane that tries to fly into space is shot down. We're not paying back the Chinese money. They're not paying back the Venezuela money. I'd hang the guy by the toes like Mussolini and install people. And let me tell you something. People in Venezuela would be doing a jig. The thought process that we say we're going to do something and then don't do it, totalitarians only respond to one thing. Force. And the guy in North Korea should never have been met with. He should be hung at The Hague. Why? Let me ask you one last question. Why do we have Rangers and Navy SEALs? Why do we have special forces? We have them to take these people out. And the guy in North Korea, when you go to bed tonight, think of this one last thing. If you want to go read the report written by an Australian
If you can ever sleep again.
Yeah. read the report 3 years ago by the Australian jurors. Read the report. Your tears will come down your eye. Tonight, mothers who have babies who were caught with the Bible will drown their own babies. 100,000 people in gulags in North Korea. If I was the president, he would not be allowed. Anyway, I know there's a lot of important things I appreciate.
Good job, Steve. Thank you.